Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hidden in the Thrones podcast, the show where I read the Game of Thrones books for the very first time and give you my genuine reaction to the tale's events. My name is Krisha Mike, creator and host for this podcast and first-time Game of Thrones reader. And I'm so glad to have you guys back today. I appreciate every listen, every play. Thank you so much for being here with me. I am mad appreciative. All right. Enough of the niceties. So, Bridgerton. Yeah, I'm still talking about this show a whole week after watching it because it's consuming my brain parts. I love a good Regency tale. I read my first Regency when my hormones were raging, and I've never looked back. Although the story or the plot itself has become more of the star more than with the but anyway, sorry mom and dad, sorry. Anyway, I love a good Regency, and I love that Bridgerton was brought to our screens after a 20-year wait. A Google search says that it is the first book was written in 2000 thereabouts, and now it's on Netflix and it's screening to a crazy record amount of people. I think it was 76 something million households or people watched, or whatever the case is, which is great. I love when people do the work and they put in the work and then they finally get their flowers. It's always great to see. But here's what I kind of loved about Bridgerton the most, besides the fact that this is a Regency tale, right? I love that we got to see Black people in powerful positions in that particular period, given the period. If I'm not mistaken, Regency is like around... Oh, sorry. That was a burp. Sorry. Yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, Regency was around like the 1700s, early 1800s, something of the sort. And if you aren't Black, and I don't mean like this in like a rude way, but if you aren't Black, you just have no idea what this does for us as a people. You guys you don't have the foggiest. And to see us like that, and to know that we are more than just for a particular unit, to finally recognize that we are more than just suffering, cotton picking, slaving people, and that we are above all that, and we're more than the animals that people that we were made to be, and that it does a lot for the subconscious, and it does a lot for us as a people. But, and this could be just like personally for me, to me, and I don't mean to be the party poop in general, you guys, but I also kind of feel on the other side, while I'm happy that this is happening, I also feel like now inserting us into a period where we were not necessarily welcome, at least in the reality of things. And I'm choosing my words carefully here because I know that historians are digging up some really juicy stuff, which we always love to see. But inserting us post-production into a period that didn't welcome us into the positions, it kind of hurts as well. And I hope I don't make people mad when I say this, because Bridgerton is a great show. I love it. Some people don't agree with me, but I love the show. I love seeing us on screen. But what I'm saying is that it hurts because there's no reason that this shouldn't have been the norm all the time. I'm talking about in real life and in fiction. We should have been able to be dukes and duchesses and kings and queens, and we should have been able to own land, and we should have been able to love and to accept and be accepted just because we breathe. And the case is, in the reality of things, okay, iCloud, okay, cars and my computer hear me going on a very important rant, and I'm just, rude is what we call that. Rude. I don't appreciate that. Anyway, as I was saying, we weren't allowed to be loved and to love and to go through all the normal things that human beings were able to go through because we weren't considered human beings. And so to arrow us in like this, and I love that we're making an attempt to kind of humanize us, Black people, I mean, but it also kind of makes me sad in the same breath, because it tells me what should have been, and it reminds me of what was lost just because my ancestors were differently colored. And it makes me sad. I love to see it. I love to get the recognition that we so richly deserve, but it kind of like, it makes me sad too. But I mean, don't stop it. Like, I'm not saying to stop it. I'm not saying that you should continue showing us in the fields being whipped and not, looking spankable, I'm not saying, okay, maybe that was a poor choice of words. I apologize. That was a poor choice of words. I'm not saying stop showing us in positions like this, but just be aware that, at least for me, it does bring about that kind of sadness as well. So just had to get that part of the way. But let me just say categorically that Penelope Featherington and Eloise Bridgerton are my two favorite characters, hands down. And no amount of shirtless scenes from Roger Jean Page can change that. And Roger Jean Page, people, is the guy who played the Duke. Yeah. So that's the guy who played the Duke. And these two are just brainy. They're sarcastic. They're funny. And they really just don't give a damn about what society expects of them. Well, Eloise more than Penelope. But she's there. Penelope Featherington, Pen, whatever you want to call her, played by the absolutely beautiful Nicola Coughlan. And Nicola is gorgeous. You guys need to go to her Twitter page and just look at her Avi. Oh, she's beautiful girl. Where's Claudia Jesse's Eloise, but I love the both of them. And Claudia Jesse, of course, plays Eloise Bridgerton, and both of them are two beautiful girls, gorgeous girls, and they play two amazing characters. The beautiful on screen and the beautiful off screen, because I have seen a couple of Nicola's tweets. I haven't seen Claudia's tweets as much, but they're both beautiful on screen and off, and I love them to bits and pieces. Eloise reminds me of Lillian Linton from the Storm and Silence series. And if you haven't read the Storm and Silence series, it is on Wattpad and it is also on Radish Fiction. So you guys can go and check that out. You should go and check that out. It's a great book. It's amazing. And the book is written by Robert Thayer. He's German, I believe. And Mr. Thayer, if you ever listen to this and I got your nationality wrong, please forgive me. But she reminds me of Lillian. Eloise reminds me of Lillian so much. And I've never read the books before, but I certainly hope that if she gets a book, that she ends up going to university and dresses up like a man and ends up getting to go to university to learn, because that would just be so good. But yeah, Bridgerton. I'm not going to talk about the amount of butts that we saw, because there were many amounts of butts. There were many butts, very many butts, and I'll just leave it at that. It was a great show. I loved it. I would not have lasted a day on set around the butts. But yeah, if you're into Regency, go in, check that out. It's a good show. I cracked under the pressure of just wanting to go and watch it and be done, and I am absolutely glad that I was able to go and do that.
Hey there. All the big podcasts usually take this opportunity to talk about their sponsors. This podcast doesn't have any. But there's nothing like speaking it into existence before it happens. So, this is an ad space and this is made for the Hidden in the Thrones podcast. Now on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, Breaker, Radio Public, and Anchor.
So we pick up from where Catelyn is at the bedside of Bran, and she was particularly rude to Jon Snow before he left to go to the north, well, further north, which is toward the wall. And she's sitting there and she's holding Bran's hand, and her son comes in, which is Rob. Her eldest son comes in, and he basically tells her that her other children need her. And she explains to him that, she doesn't know how to be that person right now because she's so worried about Bran, and she's worried about him dying if she leaves or if she moves or whatever. And Rob just kind of like breaks down. And eventually Rob leaves, and Catelyn is left sitting there with Bran. And forgot the reason why he left. He leaves because there is a fire in one of the towers, and so as the lord of the house, he is forced to go out and stop the fire. While he's out there, and while everybody else, because all the guards and stuff clear the room, this man is in the room with a knife, supposedly to come and kill Bran. And Catelyn eventually gets in the way and stops him with the help of Bran's wolf, who is still nameless at this point. So they stop the guy. The wolf ends up mauling the guy to death. And they come back, and Catelyn gets bandaged up. She finally gets some sleep. And then she asks for updates on what's going on in the castle, belatedly, but I guess better late than never. And she decides that given the dire situation that they are in, concerning Bran's safety and concerning Ned and her other children's safety, because they do realize that Ned and they may be walking into a trap, she decides that she is gonna go and warn Ned. And this is the first time that she's left Bran's side in I don't know how many days, but she makes that decision, and she really regains some semblance of herself. And that's what we leave her deciding to go north. So a couple notes that I have here. One of the things that Catelyn did after the guy died, because the wolf attacked the guy, ripped out his throat, and then came and sat on the bed right next to Bran's body, I guess, at this point, because Bran wasn't really here nor there. He was barely hanging on, and the wolf kills him and then goes and lays down next to Bran. And Catelyn sees this, and she just starts laughing uncontrollably, and that's how Rob and they come back and meet her. Now, it could be shock. It could be shock that she experienced, and she's just, laughing out all the shock. Or it could possibly be that she realized that she wasn't much of a help in doing what she was doing, which was sitting by the bedside. The wolf did more for Bran in seconds than she was able to do in her entire time there, just sitting there and moping and being mean to Jon Snow, which I'm not over, by the way. I don't think I continue to say, I understand it, but I will never get over that. But I feel like it could be shock. More than likely it's shock. But I feel like she also recognized that she wasn't really much of a help in the end, and that her sitting there was more or less useless and coward. I don't want to say cowardly. It wasn't cowardly. I mean, she was doing all her mother could do. But essentially, everything that she did was useless. And her decision to go to King's Landing in the end, which is where she headed off to warn Ned and the girls, it was it was probably the only decision that she could have made. Again, I think she realized in the end that she wasn't really serving Bran any purpose, and she wasn't serving any purpose being there. So she wanted to be of help, and she found a way to be of help in the end. And somebody said something, I think it was Rob. In the end, he had said Bran was holding her hand, and there's so much packed into those 5 words. First of all, she was holding Bran's hand, right? She held onto Bran's hand, and I remember the Martin had described how his hand was so thin and frail, and that's to be expected because he's not really eating. He had a diet of like honey and water, and that was what was keeping him alive. And she was holding his hand, but it means to me that Bran more or less was holding her back from doing something helpful, something reasonable, something that would aid everyone in the situation that they were in. And it's such a powerful statement as to what her state of mind was, where she was at, the Catelyn that she had become. And Bran essentially, I think what he wanted to say was Bran was holding her back and keeping her from being the lady of the house that she needed to be, and ended up putting all the strain on Rob, and he was really feeling it at this point because the other little son, Bracken, one out of the two, he was like 3, and he was telling his mom he was just crying and he didn't know what to do or how to comfort him or whatever. So essentially, that statement just basically means Bran was holding her back, and it's such a weird flip to it. Not that Bran could actually hold a hand, but as more like a spiritual holding of the hand. Didn't mean to get so philosophical, but yeah, it was an interesting phrase to use. Right, so on to this next very busy chapter in the book. I felt like this was a busier chapter for more than most of the chapters thus far. It was very, very busy. So a couple things happened in this chapter. The king's procession on the way back, I guess, to the south, they had stopped and they had the caravans and whatever. Of course, we know this because in last episode we talked about Ned and the king having a conversation about how to go forward in terms of war. And in this chapter, it kind of focuses on the children. And so Sansa and the have been invited basically to some kind of dinner thing with the queen. And Sansa, of course, is excited to go because she's a little ladykins. And the Sector Morgana tells Sansa that she has to invite her sister, which is Arya, and she goes to get after allow for the vehicles, must allow for the vehicles in my background. Anyway, so she goes to get Arya, and Arya is basically practicing sword fighting with... Oh no, she's not practicing sword fighting just yet. She's just kind of picking. She's trying to clean. She's trying to clean Nymeria, which is her wolf, and Nymeria is chock full of mud. God knows how alone she got that. But she's cleaning Nymeria, and Sansa comes and lets her know that they have to report to the queen for this particular ride or banquet or whatever the hell it is. It's some kind of thing where they have to attend with the queen. I don't know. There was promise of lemon cakes and sweets and so on. It seems to be a tea party. I'm not entirely. I can't remember. I've read this chapter so long ago. I really can't remember what it was. It's so dumb. Anyway, so she comes and tells Arya. So Sansa tells Arya that she has to report for this thing, and Arya tells her in no uncertain terms that she doesn't want to go because she doesn't like the queen. And I felt that. But garish the book. But let's keep to the plot of the book. So anyway, Sansa storms off, and when she's walking back, she sees this crowd gathered around the queen's carriage or whatever. Well, it's like the carriage is like kind of like in the center of the square, and everybody's kind of like gathered around it. And there's this big introduction of certain King's Guard men, and these are guys that are a part of law and for like the whole of for all of the kingdoms. So they are part of law, and they're pretty famous, and they all having this conversation, and they introduce themselves. And Sansa gets frightened by one of the guys. I think it's either the Hound or the other guy with the note without the talk. I can't remember his name at this point in time, and I don't have the book yet again. I never bring my book when it's time to record, so that I always forgetting names. Anyway, so she's frightened by one of the guys, and people start laughing at her. She's of course feeling subconscious, and Prince Joffrey, swoops in to rescue her, quote unquote. And so the queen lets her know, because of certain things, tea party is off. Joy of joys. And she tells Joffrey to entertain Sansa in her stead. So, and that's what he does. So they go and they have a little picnic, and they do all kinds of things. And they end up coming up to where Arya and her friend Micah are both sword fighting. And essentially, Joffrey bothers the both of them. He is, in a word, mean. He's horrendous to those poor children. And what ends up happening is that Joffrey's attacked by Nymeria. And there's this whole confrontation. Micah runs away. There's this whole confrontation. And at the end of the chapter, we're left knowing that Arya is going to be in a whole heap of trouble. Right. So like I said, this chapter was very, very, very busy. I'm pretty sure there are parts that I'm forgetting, or that I forgot when I was jotting on my notes, but the chapter is very, very busy, especially for given the age of the people that are involved, because these are 12-year-olds and 11-year-olds and 10-year-olds. I think Arya is like 9, and it's a very, very busy chapter, and it's nice to see chapters that are, so focused on the activities of the children, and give them that kind of, instead of pushing them to the background and making them like props, they give them their own little storyline, and I like that. I liked that the chapter was that busy. It was great. Let's just address how I feel about the various characters. Well, not the various characters. I just want to deal with 2 characters, because I think you guys already know how I feel about Arya. But this is the first time that we really got some insights into Sansa, and I just need to say in one sentence, Sansa is the pick-me of the entire book. I'm saying that now, but maybe there might be somebody else to beat her, but she's the pick-me of all time. And I don't know if I don't want to say it's entirely her fault. I think she just wants to be a good daughter. I think she just wants to do the right thing, and she wants to make a good impression as much as possible, because she knows how important standing is. Doesn't stop her from being a pick-me, but I kind of get it. And there's a point where the narrative says that she knew that she was in love with him referring to Joffrey, because they are promised to each other, of course. And I'm wondering if it is it's Sansa that's in love with Joffrey, or is she saying that in an attempt to kind of reconcile the fact that this is her duty, and she would do anything to just kind of fulfill her duty? And for me, I feel like it's the latter thing. She just wants to be obedient, and her obedience is making her think that she's feeling things that she doesn't actually feel. And it's a sad place to be. I think that's what making that is what is making her the pick me. Or maybe it's just that my sense of right and wrong has now become skewed. But I think it's more she's been programmed to duty, and she's convinced herself that she is now in love with what is essentially a horrible human being. I found myself saying to the book many times, shut the hell up, Sansa. Just shut the hell up. And there's no way that I should be saying that to what I think she's 10. Can't be saying that to a 10-year-old. That's mean. But throughout the book, it was just, I guess Martin makes the characters so mature that you kind of forget that they're 9 and 10, and you kind of like treat them as adults. So for me, it was just like, shut the hell up, Sansa, and stop being a pick me, Sansa, and shut the hell up. With Joffrey, I'm kind of like swayed by what I already hear from other people. No doubt he was mean, but in this instance, I feel like Joffrey is 12 and 12-year-olds are little turds. They're in that awkward stage where they're pre-adolescent, and they just, I don't know, their turd levels, just their little snot levels just go up a notch, and they're just horrible. They just, some of them just become horrible people. And I feel like you can't entirely put the blame on him there. But he was horrible to two people who did absolutely nothing to evoke his ire. But still, even more, I think Sansa's pick-me-ism kind of like outweighed everything else. Like, that's your sister, yo. You're gonna let somebody who you barely know, just because it's attached, like obedience and duty and stuff, you're gonna let somebody mess with your family? Like, where's the loyalty, Sansa? Come on. Like, for real. Like, no. Like, I mean, Joffrey's a prince, so he knows that he can abuse his power. But Sansa grew up in like a loyal family. Even if you don't see eye to eye with your sister, I mean, that's your sister, fam. I really did expect better of her as a Stark. But yeah, those are my thoughts on this particular chapter. I know Arya is going to be in a world of trouble. It's just left to see. Ay, Dios mío. It's just left to see how deep this trouble goes, and I honestly look forward to the development of all these children and all these characters, and I hope Sansa gets better for her sake. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for me for today. Thank you for being here with me once again. You guys are awesome. I love each and every one of you who downloads my stuff, because I didn't actually expect anybody to start listening to me anyway, but slowly but surely my views are coming in, and I appreciate the fact that you guys are taking the time to listen to me blather on about a book I'm sure you guys are over by now. So thank you for listening. Be sure to follow me on my socials. You can contact me on my personal handle on Twitter, that is at Miss Mike 772. That's MSMIKE 772. Or you can use the at Turbulent Book W1 handle. Why did I blank for 2 seconds? Yeah, so that's the at Turbulent Book W1 Twitter handle. That's the Turbulent Bookworm Podcast Twitter page as well. You guys can send me your messages. You can also leave me a voice message here if you have the Anchor app. Even if you don't have the Anchor app, I think that you can use that feature. So go ahead and take advantage of that and let me know your thoughts. But that is going to do it for me for today. Thank you so much again for listening. I appreciate your company today and every single day that you listen. Take care, guys. Be safe. Stay focused. Yo, peeps. I'm gone.